Guys, welcome back for Chapter 6. Once again, for Chapter 6, we are completing a Gathering Evidence worksheet. Please have that worksheet handy. If you would pull it out in front of you. It looks like this. So we see two questions this time. Question 1, compare and contrast Calvin and Meg's view and reaction of their mothers. How are the children's view, the way that they see them, and reaction to seeing their mothers similar and different? Question 2, describe the new setting that is introduced to the children at the end of the chapter. Be specific. How is the new setting different from Earth? So first we need to, in the directions we see number 1, what will you be gathering evidence about? Underline the focusing questions in the prompts above. I'm going to pause for a minute while you reread those questions. And actually, I'd love it if you hit pause as well, and then hit play when you're ready to go over them. Okay, let's take a look at number 1. Focusing question. What things did you underline? I missed this interaction with you because I'd really like to hear what everybody says. I'm curious if you underlined compare and contrast. I'm curious if you underlined view and reaction. Similar and different. But what is it that we're going to have to do? How are the children's view and reaction to seeing their mothers similar and different? So we need to pick out how they see them. So I would say the children's view, and then and also their reaction to their mothers. And you have to both either compare, contrast, similar and different. You don't have to underline in both places, but we have to have some of that. Number 2, what did you underline? What's the main part of the question? What is the big part of the prompt that you need to answer? Did you underline, describe? Did you underline in either spot, either here or down here? New setting. And then also we want different from Earth, right? We need to know how is it different from Earth, right? The key thing, part of the reason I made sure I underlined describe as well is because I don't want you just to jump right into the new setting of how it's different. You had to tell me what it's like. Give me some details and then make the comparison of how they are different, how it's different. Okay, let's look at number 2. What information will you need to be able to answer the guiding question to explain your answer? Look carefully at the graphic organizer on the back side of this paper and determine with Mrs. Weber what information will go in the chart and where you will find it. We did this in the last lesson, but we're going to do it again because for some reason, year after year, I have done this and people don't put the information in the right place, and they struggle with this. They don't get the information from the right place, and I have to imagine with this year where we are half in school, half remote, it's going to be even more confusing for us. So let's look at these columns. This time, we actually are going to use all 4, or in the next lesson. I'm not sure if it's this one or the next one. So first of all, we have detail evidence, first column. And I put a little note, details about the mothers and setting. So 2 questions, one's about the kids' moms, the other question's about setting. So we're looking for, you will write a quote about Calvin's mom. I didn't do that part for you in this box right here. And I'm gonna try to come back and type something in there for you as well. But there's more than one choice. And I want you to pick the one that you think is best. You'll need a quote about Meg's mom. You need a quote about Calvin's reaction to seeing his mom. A quote about Meg's reaction to seeing her mom. a quote about the setting, a quote about the setting. At least 2 details for that one. Okay, don't forget what goes in this column. The page number. I'm going to stick with these 2 together. Does these 2 pieces where we're filling in those 2 columns come from the same place? Where will you get that information? I hope you remember. It's going to come from the book. I want quotes. That's the exact words from the book. You need to put it in quotations. I don't want you to generalize, and I don't want you putting down what you think is a specific detail. I want the exact words in this box. All right. This 3rd column, inference/reasoning. We are going to explain what these ideas reveal about the characters or the setting. You have to make this connection, this explanation of the quote. You can't just write down a quote and think that that answers the question. You need to show your thinking and explain what that quote means. So where will the information for this come? If you are making an inference and you are reasoning it out, where will you get that from? From your brain. That's where you think. That's your thinking column. I believe this time we are writing our answers out. So it asks you, used in your writing? Put a check mark or a yes once you've written your answer out and you've included this information, or a no. Maybe when you start writing, you've changed it a little bit. You might not have 4 quotes in your question 1. You might decide to generalize some of those, but you do need to make sure that you answer the question completely. Okay, let's go back to number 3. Listen carefully as the chapter is read aloud. Whether we do that in class with me reading, or you're at home listening to the video, or if I have decided to put the video on for you in class because we need help learning how to learn from a video. Watch for information that will help you complete the graphic organizer. During the read aloud, every time you hear some evidence from the text that you think belongs on the chart, hopefully you can raise your hand. If we're in class, I'll pause the video. We'll talk about it. Or if I'm not showing the video, we will actually stop and talk about it. The class will stop to discuss what you've noticed and decide whether to add that evidence to the chart. If you are working remotely, pay attention to the video and the discussions Mrs. Weber has with you to help you complete the chart. So I've said a bit of that. Here's the new one. Last time we only had 3 steps. Now we've got to take it to that next step. Number 4, write your responses. And actually by write, I mean type. We need to practice typing more. You probably heard in the past that I was this teacher that made people write in cursive. I used to require final copy format was either cursive and pen or you typed it. And really we all need to be working towards typing because of the world we currently live in. So it does say, please type and submit to Teams. Be sure to start your answer with a topic sentence. There's not a topic sentence in that chart. So you need to come up with a topic sentence on your own. Go back to your writing strategies packet and pull out a topic sentence strategy, whichever one you want to start your paragraph. Use transition words or phrases to introduce the details that will lead into your quotes. Also in your writing strategies packet, you have a whole page of transition words. Use those concrete ones if you want, or if you're good at using flowing phrases that make things flow from one idea to the next, that's fine as well. But it needs to make sure that you are introducing each time you have a new detail. Cite the page number. Now it says as discussed. We're going to discuss it a little bit right now. At the end of a quote, I am going to ask that you just put that number into parentheses. Okay, we'll talk about that a little bit more later on, but you simply need to put the parentheses around the number. You don't need to write page, but you could use that as a transition if you wanted to. You could say on page blank and start to explain it, and that could be a transition. If you do that, you do not have to put the quote into parentheses, but don't do the same thing for all of them, okay? Be sure to explain each quote. When you've included the information in the chart in your written answer, be sure to note it on the chart. So we'll come back and review number 4 once we're done. So I'll probably repeat that in another video or in class time. So now you're looking at the back, you have this chart in front of you, and we are going to get started on chapter 6. In the yellow book, it is on page 91. In the black book, it is on page 102. Okay. I stop my screen share just for a minute, and I'll put it back up when we're ready to put something in it, okay? Chapter 6 is called the happy medium. There's that term again. However, we did meet the happy medium in the last chapter, remember? A medium, almost like a psychic, can see into a variety of realms. So what is she going to show them? She didn't want to show them. Again, they focused their eyes on the crystal ball. The earth with its fearful covering of dark shadow swam out of view, and they moved rapidly through the Milky Way, and there was the thing again. Watch, the medium told them. The darkness seemed to seethe and writhe. Was this meant to comfort them? Suddenly, there was a great burst of light through the darkness. The light spread out, and where it touched the darkness disappeared. The light spread until the patch of dark thing had vanished, and there was only a gentle shining, and through the shining came the stars, clear and pure. Then slowly the shining dwindled until it too was gone, and there was nothing but stars and starlight. No shadows, no fear, only the stars and the clear darkness of space. Quite different from the fearful darkness of the thing. So this is it's kind of like a theme that we're going to come back to, this idea of light defeating darkness. You may have heard that before, the idea of, we're looking at good over evil, that dark thing, we knew it was evil. And light is usually referred to as being good. So this light has defeated the darkness. You see, the medium cried, smiling happily, it can be overcome. It is being overcome all the time. Mrs. Whatsit sighed, a sigh so sad that Meg wanted to put her arms around her and comfort her. Tell us exactly what happened then, please, Charles Wallace said in a small voice. It was a star, Mrs. Whatsit said sadly. A star giving up its life in battle with the thing. It won. Oh yes, my children, it won. But it lost its life in the winning. Mrs. Witch spoke again. Her voice sounded tired, and they knew that speaking was a tremendous effort for her. It was not so long ago for you, was it? She asked gently. Mrs. Whatsit shook her head. So what do we learn Mrs. Whatsit is or was? She did this same thing. She was a light. She was a star. She gave up her life to be able to defeat the darkness. But she's not truly dead, is she? She's something else now. Charles Wallace went up to Mrs. Whatsit. I see. Now I understand. You were a star once, weren't you? Mrs. Whatsit covered her face with her hands as though she were embarrassed and nodded. And you did what that star just did. With her face still covered, Mrs. Whatsit nodded again. Charles Wallace looked at her very solemnly. I should like to kiss you. Mrs. Whatsit took her hands down from her face and pulled Charles Wallace to her in a quick embrace. He put his arms around her neck, pressed his cheek against hers, and then kissed her. Meg felt that she would have liked to kiss Mrs. Whatsit too, but that after Charles Wallace, anything that she or Calvin did or said would be anticlimax. So climax, that highest point of interest, but the opposite when we have anti. So Charles kissing her, that's the good part. She contented herself with looking at Mrs. Whatsit, even though she was used to Mrs. Whatsit's odd getup, and the very oddness of it was what made her seem so comforting. She realized with a shock that it was not Mrs. Whatsit herself that she was seeing at all. The complete, the true Mrs. Whatsit, Meg realized, was beyond human understanding. What she saw was only the game Mrs. Whatsit was playing. It was an amusing and charming game, a game full of both laughter and comfort, but it was only the tiniest facet of all the things Mrs. Whatsit could be. I didn't mean to tell you, Mrs. Whatsit faltered. I didn't mean ever to let you know, but oh, my dears, I did so love being a star. You are still very young, Mrs. Witch said, her voice faintly chiding. The medium sat looking happily at the star-filled sky in her ball, smiling and nodding and chuckling gently. But Meg noticed that her eyes were drooping, and suddenly her head fell forward and she gave a faint snore. Poor thing, Mrs. Whatsit said. We've worn her out. It's very hard work for her. Please, Mrs. Whatsit, Meg asked, what happens now? Why are we here? What do we do next? Where is Father? When are we going to him? She clasped her hands pleadingly. One thing at a time, love, Mrs. Whatsit said. Mrs. Who cut in. As paredes tem huevid. That's Portuguese. Walls have ears. Yes, let us go outside, Mrs. Whatsit said. Come, we'll let her sleep. But as they turned to go, the medium jerked her head up and smiled at them radiantly. You weren't going to go without saying goodbye to me, were you? She asked. We thought we'd let you sleep, dear. Mrs. Whatsit patted the medium's shoulder. We worked you terribly hard, and we know you must be very tired. But I was going to give you some ambrosia, or nectar, at least some tea. At this, Meg realized that she was very hungry, or she was hungry. How much time had passed since they had had their bowls of stew? She wondered. But Mrs. Whatsit said, oh, thank you, dear, but I think we'd better be going. They don't need to eat, you know, Charles Wallace whispered to Meg. At least not food, the way we do. Eating's just a game with them. As soon as we organized again, I'd better remind them that they'll have to feed us sooner or later. The medium smiled and nodded. It does seem as though I should be able to do something nice for you after having to show those poor children such horrid things. Would you they like to see their mother before they go? Here we go. Could we see Father? Meg asked eagerly. No, Mrs. Witch said. We are going to your father, Meg. Do not be impatient. But she could see her mother, couldn't she? The medium wheedled. Oh, why not? Mrs. Whatsit put in. It won't take long and it can't do any harm. And Calvin too? Meg asked. Could he see his mother too? Calvin touched Meg in a quick gesture, and whether it was of thanks or apprehension, nervousness, she was not sure. I think it is a mistake, Mrs. Witch said disapproving. But since you have mentioned it, I suppose you must go ahead. I hate it when she gets cross, Mrs. Whatsit said, glancing over at Mrs. Witch. And the trouble is, she always seems to be right. But I really don't see how it could hurt. And it might make you feel better. Go on, medium dear. The medium, smiling and humming softly, turned the crystal ball a little between her hands. Stars, comets, planets flashed across the sky, and then the earth came into view again. The darkened earth, closer, closer, till it filled the globe. And they had somehow gone through the darkness until the soft white of clouds and gentle outline of continents shone clearly. Calvin's mother first, Meg whispered to the medium. I'm actually going to stop there. So I recorded to make sure I was about 20 minutes. And because we're getting right to the point where we're going to be gathering up our quotes and filling in that chart, I'm going to stop. And when we start our next video, be ready to write things down because we're going to get right into it. Whether you go on right now or you do it a little bit later. See ya.